You are now watching Believe. Do you believe?
Horns Up Talking Texas podcast. We're recording out of our new studio in El Segundo, the three of us.
In Manhattan Beach.
Yeah.
It's great. We love
really
it.
exciting.
El Segundo.
Yeah.
El Segundo.
El Segundo.
I try to make it more like Texas-y. I don't know, but Manhattan Beach, in California.
I mean, the address says Manhattan Beach. People want to come visit us.
Yeah, shout out to us and our families, of course. We can't give out the address for, company reasons.
We can, because you can come visit us. It's on my email.
Nick will email all our listeners after the show, so really get excited. Speaking of excitement, it was 17-7 at a point. They had hit that touchdown pass.
And then they hit an extra, or onside. So they hit an extra point, then they hit
The onside
kick.
And things were looking to be a disaster once again for a game that we were favored heavily in. But once we made things 17-14, Bijan found the end zone for the first time. He really didn't turn back. He broke one off for 78 later in the game and then 41 once again in the fourth quarter and had the game that we've
been waiting for.
Yeah, been anticipating. I think, it was in the ULM game, we were up by so much, and he did a little bit in the receiving aspect and then obviously did some in the run game he's scheduled to do.
He only got 10 carries that game.
Yeah, he only got 10 carries that game, so the sample size was smaller. They really stymied him in the Alabama game, but both offenses were stymied in the Alabama game.
And I don't think it was any discredit to his play. It was just the fact that Bama's defensive line was so dominant that our O-line couldn't really get a standard push, so Bijan didn't have many holes to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They were loading the box in that game, of course, once
Yeah.
Quinn went down. But I just looked it up real quick. ULM game, Bijan had 13 touches, 10 rushes, and 3 receptions. In this past game, he had 21 touches, which is obviously ideal when we've talked about on this show before that he's a first-round draft pick, and we hadn't seen the type of game that really warranted that. I think obviously everyone believes that from a talent standpoint, not only Longhorn fans, but former NFL players that came out last year and talked about how talented this guy is. But he had the 183 on the ground. He had 3 touchdowns. He was effective, of course, in the pass game, at least for the 1 reception that he had for 19 yards. And that's exactly what we've been looking for. That most running backs that are first-round draft picks execute from a performance standpoint. We see it a lot with guys that played in the SEC, Leonard Fournette, what he was able to do at LSU. Of course, all the guys that come through Georgia and Alabama.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, the Wisconsin backs. And he put it on full display.
Right.
Yeah,
and
it's fantastic.
Also, don't want to just give all the love to Bijan because his running mate, Roshan, had a big game too. 11 carries, 81 yards, and caught a touchdown.
Yeah.
So getting him in the mix is something super vital to this offense, giving Bijan that time off. And when they're both in the game at the same time, you never know where you're going to get hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a situation where what gave me comfort, Roshan actually got going earlier than Bijan did this game. And so my mindset was, okay, the holes are there. The anticipation for Bijan, like we saw in the Alabama game, is a bit easier for opposing teams. He's in the game. It's almost like the Mariano Rivera cut fastball, especially with Hudson Card in the mix. With Quinn, if Quinn's dealing if Quinn is what we saw in the first quarter and a half of Alabama or so, then we're in great shape, and then we're really going to be able to mix up the spices in the offense going forward. And he's practicing in pads. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is smoke.
He was padded on the sideline.
I don't know if this is smoke and mirrors headed into Big 12 as we go into what could be our last game in Lubbock or second to last game in Lubbock. Or no, could be our last game in Lubbock because they'll be coming to us next year. And if we're going to the SEC after that, this could be our last game in Lubbock. Yeah, I sure hope so.
Yeah. Nothing good ever happens in Lubbock.
Yeah. And it could be a little smoke and mirrors heading into that game. They are running with a backup quarterback, it seems, which is nice, although I think he's a bit better than people are. He could have won the job or had a shot to win the job.
Talk about the Texas Tech quarterback?
Yeah. But before we get into that game, sticking with the UTSA game, all things considered with our quarterback limitations, and the limitations with Hudson Card, we talk about it time and time again, he does not get the ball out quick enough. And his ability to stretch the field has to be put in question. Mm-hmm. He really can't move the ball too deep.
Yeah. All of the passes are short, screens, bubbles, in routes. If he throws it to the sideline or if he throws it deep, for some reason, there's just too much loft on his ball. It hangs up in the air too much. And that's with any route that I see that's outside the hash. And typically, if a ball hangs up too long in the air, then it's up for grabs. It's anyone's ball. That leads to more interceptions. Now, he's not really throwing interceptions yet, but he hasn't really played incredible defense against UTSA. Alabama, yes, amazing defense, but they didn't really let him throw the ball downfield that much. It was really evident when, you're running the ball 3 times in a row, especially when the down distance is long. But I think it's positive to see Quinn on the field practicing. I don't necessarily know if that means he's going to be playing for Texas Tech, or if it's just kind of like to, get him back in the mix a little bit, get him feeling better, getting his confidence up. And then, of course, trying to bamboozle Tech a little bit to screw up their game plan, because Sark last week was very adamant about not giving away his starter until game time, right? Obviously, they probably knew the entire time Hudson was their guy. However, they weren't going to let anyone know who was going to take the snaps until the snap.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring up Hudson not only stretching the field vertically but horizontally, going for the longer-esque screens outside the hash marks. He has issues with those. Those balls are, by and large, I hate to say it, ducks.
And I think it comes back to what you're saying as well, is he needs the ball out quicker. But what you're saying, ball out quicker, is more of a decision-making process.
Very timid.
Very timid, but I think from a mechanical standpoint, he needs to have a quicker jolt in his arm. Like, he legit has to have it's no zip. He's got to have more of a mechanical, growth in the arm to make sure that the ball gets out quick.
Yeah, he needs a heater. I mean, if you look at go to the NFL, right? If you look at the NFL from the NFL standpoint, like one of the best to do it right now is your guy Nick Justin Herbert, and he throws a massive heater. He's got a fireball for an arm. So Herbert throws a heater. Hudson Card really doesn't carry that in his arsenal. That's an issue. And in the situation versus Tech, though, the positive of the UTSA game was the holes were open early for guys like Roshan. So once it got later in the game and UTSA's defense was a bit worn down, it was easier for Bijan to break through. He breaks through the 78-yarder and the 41-yarder. We also had another touchdown on defense.
Yeah.
Jahdae Barron had a touchdown, a pick six. Tip drill, tip six.
Yeah.
He didn't really read anything, but it was a really headsy play.
If they're going to give you those, you got to take advantage of them.
But I just love going into the year. We put so much on the offense, so much on Quinn Ewers, and at the end of all the preseason pods, we'd be like, all right, well, let's not avoid the glaring issue, which is defense, and has been defense for God knows how long, right? Since Chuck Strong was brought in, we thought the defense was going to be, it was going to be fixed, but it wasn't. Obviously, there was the defensive issues in the Herman era. And then last year, we had one of the highest scoring, if not the highest scoring offense in the Big 12. And defensively, we couldn't stop a nosebleed. This year, we're getting turnovers. We saw Frank Harris, the quarterback for UTSA, start to run the ball a bit early.
But then nothing.
But then we held him for 10 carries for 38 yards. The defense was...
He also got banged up in that game.
Yeah, he got banged up in the game. But nonetheless... They scored 17 points rather quickly.
And they scored 3 points after that.
3 points after
3
that.
points in the second half. The defense made great adjustments. I thoroughly think that this is a completely different team than it was last year on the defensive side of the ball. The seniors, the guys that were on this team last year, they've matured. They've taken a step up. They're tackling better. They're covering better. They're getting to the quarterback quicker. They're shedding their blocks quicker. It's just a different mentality. Mm-hmm. And we always point to what it could be, and maybe it's Gary Patterson, maybe it's PK himself that it's got a fire lit under his ass because Patterson's there, or maybe it's just these guys playing with a different mentality, right? They want to prove something, that they are worthy of getting drafted, like Overshawn and
who we may be without for the first half of that Tech game,
right? Because a bullshit targeting call. That was awful.
Tell them how it was.
That's the second week in a row they try to get him for targeting.
Yeah, I mean, it was face mask to face mask. It's tough. He just, in those situations, you can't necessarily go high.
Right. He's obviously going for the wrap up, but he does make contact helmet to helmet before he gets his arms around him.
Sark is appealing, by the way.
Good. I mean, as he should, right? I mean, go fight for your guy type thing.
Especially a defensive leader like that. I mean, he and Ford both led the team in tackling. 21 different guys had solo tackles in that game, which is what you love to see, because it's not only the veterans who are making their presence known, but also we had a commanding enough lead in that second half where we could get some of our second and third stringers in that game and give them valuable experience. I mean, Sark talked about that after week 1, and we've talked about that on this show with Quan, where if we want to become a program, like what Georgia seems to be right now, where they're clearly the best team and college in the country, it's about letting your guys who aren't the starters get good run and get valuable play time. And I think the really cool thing about this team, who we've now seen this iteration of the Texas Longhorns 3 games of, we started slow in this game. We started slow against ULM. ULM, we scored 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. We scored 0 points in the first quarter against UTSA. And we bounced back, and we had an effective second half. We were much better in the second half offensively than we were in the first half. Mm-hmm. And that was the complete opposite of what we saw from this team last year.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Complete opposite. And I mean, you obviously want to win on both sides no matter what, whether it's the first half or the second half. But second half is when you make the comebacks, right? It's when you go out there and you hit somebody in the mouth when they've been playing for 3 hard quarters and you got more fight in you left in the fourth quarter. I mean,
playing a full game of football.
Yeah, exactly.
Which not a lot of college teams do.
Exactly. And you see it a lot with a lot of teams, just not in college football, but in the NFL as well. There's a lot of teams that have trouble closing out games. And that's what bites teams in the ass all the time. And so if this team could step it up in the fourth quarter and be that much better than all their opponents, then they've got a real shot here to run the table in the Big 12.
Especially because our bread and butter, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, is that we can run the football. Because that's what I see in NFL games and college football games where a team, some team has a drastic comeback. It's because the team that's leading can't run the football and run out the clock. And we can do that. And I think, Hudson, for all his limitations, he did what he needed to do in the air to at least keep them honest enough. And obviously this is not the same level of talent comparatively to Alabama, which I think, they onside kicked it because they know they have less talent.
Of course.
Right? Like they know they're trying to catch us sleeping. They started off hot. We didn't. Yeah. That's why they do that.
When we were watching this game together, they did that onside kick, and Toss, you and I looked at each other and just kind of laughed because that's kind of a sign of respect on Texas. Like, okay, we're not going to beat Texas straight up, so we got to pull out all the stops. We got to pull out the trick plays. We got to do the surprise onsides. We got to steal an extra possession because Texas is that good. And so I felt respected in that regard.
That talented, at least.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I felt respected in that regard. It was silly, of course, but like, what you're not expecting, they just scored a touchdown on you and they're up by 17 points or 14 points, and you're not expecting an onside kick in like the first half.
But you should. You should, because going forward, like everyone's gunning for you. They always have been. They circle your.
But that's not happening in the Bama game.
Right, but I think it's a lesson. It's a lesson for our team to learn that you have to be prepared no matter who you're facing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I like how there's different lessons in each of the games we roll through.
For sure.
I appreciate the lesson here in the situation that we're discussing, the three of us. You have to be ready for every aspect of the game. Mm-hmm. On special teams, you can't be asleep any moment in the game. It's a chess game, and there's often times where we pull out chess moves as well. Whether it be trick plays, you have to be aware and savvy for every aspect of the game. And this is a game, fortunately, we were able to pull ahead and win out. But against a tougher opponent, not saying OU would try this, but if OU's pulling out the onside kick and catching us sleeping,
then they're probably winning the game.
It's a completely different story.
Because they stole his possession, and that's a big possession because these games usually come down to one score.
Yeah. One thing that I felt this team didn't really do well on Saturday that it's done well in the prior 2 games was penalties. 9 penalties for 88 yards in this game. Whereas last game...
Pretty disciplined.
5 back-to-back 5 penalty games.
Yeah, I mean, again, those are things that the coaches will correct, I think. It's special teams, execution, and it's penalties. And if you minimize those when you're playing a team that is up to par with you talent-wise, you make sure it doesn't happen. But it's the same thing as ULM, like Quinn throwing the early interception, right? This team, again and again, has shown that like they can have hiccups, but they can bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And to show that resilience, I think, is really, really important. especially when we get in later in the season. I mean, Baylor and Oklahoma State are cooking. Oklahoma's cooking. Like, the Big 12 is no joke.
No, and I don't even think this Texas Tech game is a joke, to be quite honest.
I feel like every game this season will be very competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Tech game, like the Tech's, they beat Houston.
I mean, Kansas is 3-0.
Kansas is 3-0.
Yeah.
Taj Brooks is a solid running back for Tech. We know that. We've seen him in the past.
Yep.
Tech lost at NC State, yeah? It was at NC State. And NC
It's a good team.
It's a good team. It's a good ACC team.
Yeah.
Ranked higher than Longhorns.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, they're a solid ACC team. They're probably, behind?
Do you guys feel disrespected that the Horns dropped in the AP poll to 22? They were 21 last week.
Because what was it? Yeah, I mean, it's one slot.
We basically
we
got jumped by Oregon, who had a resounding win against BYU.
They did.
Yeah.
However, I mean,
And who also lost their opener to Georgia.
we
who's the
won.
best team
We
in
won
the
by
nation.
21 points though, and we were a 13-point favorite heading into this game.
That's fine. Keep the chip on our shoulder. I think I'm cool with that. Like, if people still want to sleep on us, like, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
We'll use it.
We were also jumped by Washington, who had a win against number 11 ranked Michigan State.
Right.
They hopped in the mix.
I
That
mean,
was a real jump.
it honestly doesn't matter right now. We're 3 games into the season. Once we continue to play, get some more games under our belt, we'll just keep on moving up because a team like us gets more respect as you continue to win.
We're ahead of A&M.
We are ahead of A&M.
Yeah, just looking at the rankings, we also have, you've got Florida, you've got Ole Miss.
You want to
Those teams are gonna eat it. Kentucky, Tennessee, like Arkansas, all those SEC teams are gonna eat each other alive.
Penn State was nice.
There's a fun thing I'd like to do on the show from now on is we can spend a little time, maybe a segment each time, just shitting on A&M, maybe just for a little bit. I think that'd be fun. So I saw a tweet recently that said Texas's attendance for the Alabama game was less than A&M's game after they lost at home to Appalachian State. Basically saying, look at your fans compared to our fans. We had more there. And to refute that, you probably have a bigger stadium.
They do. Don't they have a big stadium in the
Yeah.
in the United States?
You have a bigger stadium.
Michigan does it not?
I know their capacity is at least like 110,000, which is more
and
than what
and
we
I think
have.
they have 70,000 students yearly. We have 50.
Right.
I mean, dude, I don't. You want
And like
A&M
and like
can't say Squatini
and like
after that video.
the tweet was like centered around them losing to Appalachian State at home. Like, why? You're just dissing yourself. You're a clown.
After we lost at home, after they got caught sleeping at home,
Yeah.
that should be the real.
I want to
thing.
read you the exact tweet because I
You
think
got it. We'll give you.
I
a
think
second.
it's pretty funny.
No, yeah. The thing is like, but this was our Appalachian State game. We could have got caught looking in the past against Alabama. We got caught looking.
This is
ahead
a
to
better
the-
team than Appalachian State.
Yeah. Okay.
I got it up.
Go.
Texas A&M. So this is at Aggies Today. Texas A&M had a larger attendance count the week after losing to Appalachian State at home than Texas did when Alabama came into town. Hashtag Aggie Fact Sunday. And then it said there's a follow-up tweet. By the way, the attendance of 105,213 for the Bama game was an all-time high. Texas A&M's attendance of about 107,000 was the third highest in Kyle Field history for an out-of-conference matchup. Okay, first of all, you're playing against Miami. Like, that's a big game people want to go to. But you have a bigger stadium than us.
And ours was out of conference as well. And y'all, like, I don't understand. I don't. I just, for me, I don't understand the logic that team puts forth. And this is like, you guys grew up in Texas and know people that went to A&M or go to A&M or something. I don't know anybody firsthand that's gone there. Admittedly, being from New York.
You do.
Ew.
Brooke Cromer.
Okay. I know one. I know of. I've met her like 5 times, realistically.
She was a host on our network. You know her.
Yeah, I know her.
Shout out to her and her family.
Yeah, I guess. The thing is my point being, I see these things, and I look at it. It's one of the few things I look at from a New York perspective and try to understand the logic, because my logic still lies there. And I don't understand these people's thought processes at A&M.
Of why they would go there over.
And no, not even why they.
Or just in general.
Everything I see of them on Twitter and social media.
The Midnight Yell looks ridiculous.
The Midnight Yell.
It's embarrassing.
It's just completely pathetic, everything that they put forth. So for me, even a tweet like this, yeah, we could spend time smack talking them, but I mean, I'm so bewildered. I'm just so bewildered. Who puts that? Yeah, who puts that out?
I mean, what? I don't know. The stadium stuff, like the attendance stuff, I am more focused on our own numbers, and this was the third highest attendance we've had this UTSA game. So to me, that's an
amazing.
indicator that people are starting to care more about Texas football because of the buzz around the university, because of Sark's involvement, not only with the players and on the field, but off the field in the community. This is something that we've talked about with Quan all the time, and it's that like when we went to those games in college, like we could tell in the stands, save for like that Notre Dame game and the crazy Cal game and a couple of other ones, like it's not the same environment as when we go up north to Dallas for the Texas OU game. But Nick, what I'm hearing from you last week when you were at the Bama game, what I'm seeing just of the attendance records that are being set, it's different. Mm-hmm. Something is different about what's going on this year, and if we continue winning, it'll all be gravy. Like we just have to keep riding the momentum, and this is exactly where we need to be as a program going into switching conferences to the SEC.
Well, this is maybe dare I say, this could be a crazy take. It may not be the biggest pedigree game, but this is one of the most. This could be the most important game of the season because we're entering Big 12 play and we're trying to win a Big 12 championship.
Until the next game, every game's the most important game of the season.
This is the most important game of the season. And if you look at the slate of the schedule, sorry, before I let you ride, Nick, it's Baylor's at Iowa State. That's an important game. That's an because this Iowa State team is not supposed to be one of the top teams in the Big 12. But if they could steal one away from Baylor, who is. That matters. I don't
want to like scoreboard watch though. I think we just got to take our own games.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just looking around the league and going, if we're offended by our ranking, we're going to be in a position if we do take care of business.
Right. Do
go into Lubbock with Hudson, with Quinn, we get in there and we implement the same kind of game plan as we had last time with Bijan trying to become explosive with the run. Florida's at Tennessee. They could be bumped from the rankings. Clemson's at Wake. Either Wake gets bumped and gets smacked by Clemson, or we see a quote-unquote upset. It's at Wake.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of big games upcoming this weekend. USC at Oregon State. Don't sleep on that one. That could move to our Arizona State just fired Herm Edwards.
They did. On the field, apparently, too.
Really?
Yeah. There's a video of it.
Super weird.
I think some of the things that Toss was talking about, though, about this feeling different this season and the buzz around the stadium, there's a few things that I can attribute to that I just see through the naked eye. One is the superstar level that we have. Last year, Xavier Worthy was a freshman. Bijan kind of broke onto the scene a couple years ago, but now he's getting that real Heisman love that people think that he's a true, favorite to win the Heisman, top 5 at least. Quinn coming in town, being one of the highest rated recruits. It's that star power that Texas hasn't had in a very long time. You look back at the recent seasons, no one really jumps off the paper at you as like, oh my gosh, that is an amazing NFL draft prospect that I'm going to take in the first round. Like you were saying to me the other day, Josh, that we have 3 guys that can go back to back to back, number 1 overall picks, potentially. I mean, obviously we have to wait and see how it all shakes up, but that would be Quinn Ewers, Kelvin Banks, and Arch Manning. And so the buzz around that, and even if Arch hasn't stepped on campus yet, that still gets people fired up even more. That a Manning that chose Texas.
Well, he also had he had like a 28-point comeback or something the other day.
Yeah, he crushed it. Yeah, exactly. He led Newman to another big win. Now, star power is one thing.
Shout out to Newman.
Another thing that I think a lot of people realize is CDC. Our homie Chris Del Conte has been put in work changing the culture of the University of Texas and really trying to get the fans out there and giving them that experience and that environment. It just felt like when I went to the game on Saturday against Bama that it wasn't so much of all right, we're just going to watch Texas play. It's more of like an event now where there's a bunch of people excited. The tailgates are always a big thing, but maybe it was just because College Game Day was there. But it was ridiculous how much excitement there was. People were lined up to get into the stadium at 2 a.m. apparently because the student section is first come, first serve. So we saw that there were people at 2 a.m. lining up to get into the stadium. Wow. Like that's not something that has really happened before at Texas.
Some Franklin's barbecue type numbers.
Yeah, we're also
even earlier than that.
Even earlier than that.
We're also all 3 of us are we're 27 years old. the Longhorn City Limits, like,
Florida.
is all over my social media, and I the reason why I bring up how old we are is because I think at this point, like, we're not in college anymore. We're like, if we saw something cool or we saw something we thought was cool, we posted it on social. Now it's like people are going to it because it's actually a fun event, and they're excited to be there, and that's why I'm seeing it all over my feeds.
I mean, you bring up our age. We have friends that go to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, I mean that's how we.
That's how I know, because on my feeds I follow my friends. So yeah.
That's how social media works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that.
But we will be previewing Texas Tech next episode. We're not gonna get too far into it. We're excited about this though.
First away game, which I think is worth noting.
Yeah, crazy that we have back-to-back home games, huh?
I'm happy about that. Get our sea legs, get our sea legs,
Our sea legs.
get our sea legs a little bit, get our sea legs.
I'm so excited to see the Stormtrooper whites. I love those.
Yeah.
I think they're so clean.
Mm-hmm. I'm pumped. I'm pumped for this Texas Tech game. I'm pumped to preview it. We'll get that to you guys this week. But great win against UTSA. Josh Fisher, Alexander Tsopoulos, DJ Nicky, Snacks Crider. Get your horns up because we are 2-1 and ranked number 22 in the country. See you next time.